Hi everyone, it's that time of the month again where I share my books that I've read for the previous month and my 4 favourite books that I recommend for the upcoming month. I'm probably a few days late into this than I should be, but whatever, we're still doing it at the beginning of the month, so I think that still counts. So I've got my trusty water glass and I've got a snack, which is a track protein flapjack. And let's get into it. All right. Right. Just have a drink first. I have only read 2 books for June, which is really shocking because actually I tend to read 1 book a week. So I'm very much behind on my reading. I wanted to have read probably 50 odd books this year and I've only read 20, so yeah, just about 3 or 4 books behind, but oh well, we will try and catch up as I'm on holiday next week, so I'll take a few books with me to read. Yeah, so hopefully I'll catch up again in July, but in any case, I've got 2 books to run through with you for June, and they are actually in the same series. It's in the Grishaverse. You may have heard of it, Leigh Bardugo. She's written a number of series, and the one I've just been reading is the Six of Crows and the Crooked Kingdom books. So the first one, without further ado, look at the cover. It's so lovely. I got the collector's editions for both Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I just absolutely love the cover. It's sort of embossed. Is it embossed? No, it's sort of raised inward rather than, I think embossed is when it's raised outward, but I can't remember. But yeah, you've got the red, lovely red of the pages. I love the inside. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? That's the map of Fjorda and Shuhan, Aravka, and Novi Zem. I can't even pronounce that correctly, but anyway. But on the back one, if I can show it, is where the team have to aim for, called the Ice Court. So I won't really give too much away. I won't give any spoilers, but it's just a lovely edition, so I would recommend the edition. What's lovely as well is, I don't know if I can show this, but it's got lovely illustrations of the characters. Really, really lovely, as you can see. It's just a stunning book just on its own, and that's prior to even reading it. So I took ages reading these books, both of Six Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I don't know why. It's just I had this sort of, I don't know. I just, every time I would go to bed and think about reading, I'd just look at the book and just go, oh, I can't face it. And I just wonder if it's because there's a lot in the books, and yeah, it's just, there's so much going on. It's sort of, you really need to focus and be quite attentive to it. And, you know, the characters are fantastic and the book is so well written, and yet I just struggled to get through it. A lot of the time I kind of felt, for both the books, I felt that the characters, there's a lot of inner monologues going on, and sometimes I kind of wondered if that was necessary. But it's interesting, some of the backstories, and it does go into the backstories of Kaz Brecker, who is sort of the leader of the Six of Crows. A bit about the Six of Crows, they're basically these sort of con men, criminals, and the book itself, Six of Crows, is actually about them going on a heist to the ice fortress in Fjorda, which has never been breached before. No one's ever escaped from it at all, and they have to break in and then break out again. and it's never been done. So there's these 6 characters who go along to do this, and there's reasons behind it, but I won't tell you what those reasons are because I feel like that would be spoiling it. But it's really fascinating, kind of just a fascinating book, really. And I won't tell you what happens, but it's just fantastic. Fantastically written, and the characters are really well done. Each chapter is by a different character, and it stays that way in Crooked Kingdom as well. And in fact, actually, I'll tell you a bit about Crooked Kingdom in a bit, but just sticking with that, it's got only 5 characters that it focuses on in Six of Crows, whereas there's 6 characters in the Crooked Kingdom that the book is written by, focused on. So yeah, it's a really, really good book. Apologies that it took me ages to get through, but anyway, I got through it, so that's all good. So I'll put that one aside. Move things around here. So the next book that I read, is Crooked Kingdom, which is the 2nd book in the series after Six of Crows. It's a duology, so there's only 2 books. And again, it's a beautiful cover. This is in gold, whereas Six of Crows was in red. It's got beautiful maps. Again, I think that's Catadan. That's where the Six of Crows are set up. And I think it's got, again, the world map at the back, as you can see. You can probably see that a bit clearer in the sort of goldy green. So yeah, and again, it's got lovely illustrations. Different illustrator for these ones, so that's Jesper and Wylan. And then you've got other characters as well. I'll show you. Yeah. Trying to show them all, it's just... Come on, where are you? I know you're in here somewhere. Ah yes, Nina and Matthias. I really love those ones. Ah, so beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, but yeah, just, again, it's got kind of the coloured spine, not spine, paper. This is in black. I much prefer the red, if I'm honest, on the Six of Crows than the black. In fact, it would have been really cool if it had been gold. That would have been amazing, but anyway. I actually preferred this one to the first one. I felt like, again, it took me a bit of a while to get into. By about halfway through, I really, really got into it, and I was like, yes, this is so good, so good. And I literally read half the book in probably only 2 days, whereas the rest of it I'd taken a couple of weeks. I feel so bad. But yeah, it just... it felt like that because there was so much going on, I really needed to focus, and by the time I got to bed, it was like, I'm shattered, I really can't focus, so yeah. But no, it was, yeah, really, really good series, and thoroughly recommend it if you like the Grishaverse. If you haven't read the Grishaverse yet, you can still read this without reading the Shadow of Bone series, but I would recommend reading Shadow of Bone first if you want to get into Grishaverse. Yeah, it's sort of brings you into the Grishaverse, but this kind of is a bit more in depth than certainly focusing on the characters of what they call the Six of Crows. And again, I mentioned with the first book that the characters it's only 5 characters that it writes from the perspective of, whereas in this one it's actually got the perspective of Wylan Vanek, and yeah, I really liked actually his perspective because it's quite nice to see another character come in. Yeah, just really, really enjoyed it, so definitely recommend those books. And that was literally it for my reading in June. So I feel a bit bad about that, but I mean, yeah, what can you do? Some months I read more than others. So I think one month I read 6 books and another month I obviously read 2. So it works out eventually. So yeah. So those are my books for June, and I will move on to my recommended books for July. So I'll pass on to those in a minute, just a moment. I'm just eating. So good. It is really good. And what's really nice about these is it's actually gluten and dairy free, which I don't know if you see my blog, but I actually suffer from something called psoriasis, which I literally have cut it right down because I've gone gluten and dairy free. And oh my god, actually my gut is seriously thanking me for it. I'm also on probiotics, but yeah, just going gluten and dairy free has helped so much. So if you are gluten and dairy free, I recommend the Trek bars. They're just flapjacks covered with chocolate, which I don't know if it's dark chocolate or yeah, I think it is dark chocolate. Yep, dark chocolate. Which actually, well, no, it's dark chocolate flavour coating, so it's not actually dark chocolate, which is interesting. But I don't care. It's so nice. But yeah, just a little intro bit there about my snack of choice. But now I really want to go on to my July recommendations. So my first one. Love it, love it, love it. Oh my god, I love the cover, love the coloured spines. I feel like there is something kind of a theme going on with the coloured pages, but anyway, just love it so much. This is one of my favourite books. And I've sort of actually gone with a sort of ocean water theme with the books this month for my recommendations, but, well, for most of them anyway. This one, even though it's called PopCo, it's actually, PopCo is the company that the main character works for, and the company she works for is sort of a toy corporation, and the main character is called Alice Butler, and she sort of works creating spy kits for kids in this toy industry. And PopCo were like, okay, we've cracked the young generation, and obviously we cracked parent generation because they buy the stuff for the kids, but we want to crack the into kind of young teenage sector. So they set up a training sort of team building weekend for all their staff to come along and do all these team building exercises and actually come up with some ideas just in this place way out there in the country. And Alice Butler goes along, and it sort of goes into lots of different themes. So she's got a background in code breaking and mathematics, so she knows so much about maths and codes, and it kind of goes into that in the book, and it's really fascinating. And she ends up getting these secret messages in code whilst she's at the at this team building weekend. And yeah, she's like, well, who's sending me these codes? I don't know who it is. And it sort of also starts going into where she actually began her code breaking kind of journey. Because when she was a kid, her father was looking for this secret treasure, and the treasure was apparently shipwrecked, hence the ship there, and hence the ocean water theme. And no one's ever been able to find this treasure, and she's got this key around her neck which sort of relates to the treasure, and she's not really figured it out ever. And so these coded messages that she starts receiving, she's like, maybe, you know, somebody knows about her background and her past and that. And it sort of leads then on to actually her finding the treasure. But spoilers there, because yeah, that is a big spoiler. But anyway, it's really, really cool. It's sort of just a mixture of so many different themes. So you've got maths and code breaking in there. You've got sort of herbal remedies that is talked about a bit. Sort of about corporations and economics as well, because obviously PopCo comes into it. And yeah, just absolutely amazing. I mean, just her writing is just amazing. I just love Scarlett Thomas. I love all her characters that she builds. They're so realistic. And the stories that she creates, there's so many different themes. And I think what amazes me is how she kind of combines all those different themes and just creates a story out of it. And it just astounds me. And I recommend that book for July this month. So that's my, and again, that's my fiction book recommend for this month. So I don't know if you've seen previous videos, but basically I recommend 4 books a month, and they're each from fiction, non-fiction, fantasy and young adult or children's books. So this is my fiction recommend for July. Over. You'll probably end up seeing all the books stack up there. But anyway, so on to the next book. This is my fantasy book recommend for this month. And you can actually see the water theme on the cover and in the title. So the ocean at the end of the lane. Now this is by one of my other favourite authors, Neil Gaiman, and I just love this book. I mean, I love his books anyway. I haven't read any of his graphic novels, but I've read all his fiction books and children's books, and I just really love them. This is, I would say it's fantasy. It could be classed as maybe young adult. I'm not really sure, because the main character in it starts off, he's like middle-aged man, and then it jumps back to when he's a kid, 7 years old. So yeah, it could be classed as fantasy young adult, but I don't know. See, yeah, not quite sure on the genre then for that, but yeah, no, really enjoyed it. It's, as I said, it starts off with this guy who goes back to his family for a funeral, actually, and he goes back to his family home, and it sort of jogs memories from when he's a kid. And so when he was a kid, his family moved there, and he meets these 3 characters, a girl called Letty, and her mother, or who he thinks is her mother, and her grandmother, again who he thinks is her grandmother, and they all live in this old house at the end of the lane. And he kind of meets Letty, but he also meets kind of mysterious mythological creatures, and you kind of start to realise there's a lot more going on than previously thought of it just being like a general fiction where he meets a character and it's his childhood kind of, well, it is sort of set over his growing up there. But yeah, so basically it's sort of, there's magic and myth going on alongside the kind of main theme of the book. So yeah, it's sort of like about his journey as a kid and meeting this girl called Letty and realising that she's like not who she seems to be, and also about him remembering kind of what happened and all the myths and strange creatures that he met. I won't really go too much into detail in the story because there's a lot that goes on, and if I'm honest, I've forgotten the ending a little bit because I haven't read it in about 7-8 years. But I just remember really enjoying it. I'll probably read it again this year and just get a better idea of what it was all about. Yeah, because I do like to read books again, especially ones I've really enjoyed. Because I remember finishing reading this being kind of mind-boggled and was like, whoa, this is so good. And I'm like, well, I'd actually want to read it again because it's actually quite an easy book to get into. I mean, I find Neil Gaiman quite easy to get into anyway. But yeah, it was quite an easy book. So I would definitely recommend it as my fantasy book for this month. There we go. Okay. So for my young adult / children's book choice for this month, it's The Stormkeeper's Island by Catherine Doyle. Now, I actually read this back in March. So actually there's a whole big book review on my blog at candidchronicles.com. That's Candid with a K. So definitely check out my full review if you need to, but I've chosen it for this month because of the sort of water ocean theme that I've got going on. It's actually based on an island with an ocean around it, so that kind of thing. I so enjoyed this book. I read quite a lot of 9 to 12-year-old books, and I think it's just sometimes just a nice, I don't know, it's just there's something about 9 to 12-year-old books, and especially young adult, you kind of always know there's going to be a good ending, and there's some themes that go on it, but sometimes you just want an easy read, and not all fiction books, adult fiction books are like that. They've got all mysteries and uncomfortable endings, and you're just like, yeah, I just really want something that's easy, because sometimes it's all about escapism. You just want something that's easy to read and just fun and magical and wonderful, and I think this was definitely one of those. I'd recommend it to anyone aged 9 to 12 because it was just such a really good read. And this is actually all about a boy called Fionn, and he is going with his sister to live on this island. There's quite some big themes in it actually, because his mum basically has put herself into an institution because she's not very well mentally, and he and his sister then go to her grandfather's, so their grandfather, and their grandfather is actually suffering from Alzheimer's. So it's really fascinating, some of the big themes that come into this, especially like Fionn and his fear of water, because he can't really swim that well, and I don't even know if he can swim, but he just has this big fear of water and won't go in it, and it's just then he goes to stay on an island. So it's like, well, that's even worse, if you've got this fear of water and you're surrounded by it with no escape. I mean, what are you gonna do? So Fionn is a really nice character. He and his sister have squabbles quite a lot in the book, and it's really nice to see those sibling rivalries going on. Recommend that if you're into a book with sibling rivalries, but just more realistic relationships between siblings, because there's a lot of books where you have them kind of going on sort of adventures together, but actually they don't have the same sort of relationship as normal siblings, I suppose, if you know what I mean. As someone who has siblings, I can definitely relate. So yeah. Anyway, so Fionn basically goes to this island, and he meets his grandfather for the first time and realises that there's something going on with this island, something magical and mysterious, and he gets embroiled in sort of what's going on with the island and the name of the Stormkeeper, who he discovers is his grandfather. And I won't tell you very much more than that, but it's just a really nice book about discoveries and magic and just character development, but really is just amazing. So yeah, really, really liked it and really recommend it. Let's go with that. So the last book that I've got is my non-fiction book for the month. It's called The Kindness Pact, and it's got 8 promises to make you feel good about who you are and the life you live. So it's a really cute little book, this one. I actually got it from Kikki.K, which is a stationer's company, a stationery shop. Unfortunately, Kikki.K doesn't exist anymore in the UK because of the virus. They sort of decided not to renew their contracts on their shops. I think they only have a couple of shops in the UK anyway. They're originally from Australia. I actually discovered them in Australia about 15 years ago now, and I was like, yes, this is so cool, I really love this shop. And of course I came back to the UK and I was like, oh, I don't have KKK over here. And then they came over here and I was like, yes, stationery company is amazing. And I really loved KKK. I've got quite a few things from them, that, you know, pens and papers and stuff, and a few books as well, which that was one of them. And this, basically, the edition is a KKK only edition, and I'm so glad I picked it up because it's a lovely cover. I don't know if they sell it on the Australian website anymore. I haven't checked into that. If they do, I'll put it in the description below. But yeah, just really liked it. I'll read a bit, not read out about it, but basically I'll read through the promises. So the first promise is to accept your imperfections. The second promise is to always do your best. The third promise is to stop comparing yourself. The fourth promise is to believe in your potential. The fifth promise is to silence your inner critic. The sixth promise is to challenge yourself. The seventh promise is to stop making excuses. And the eighth promise is to love yourself. So yeah, it's split into an introduction to those promises. It has all different chapters about those promises, kind of with stories and tips and advice. And then it's got a last chapter, which is the conclusion, how to keep the pact. And it's just a really nice book. I just really liked dipping in and out of it. Just discovering ways to kind of, for me to accept my imperfections and to silence my inner critic, because those are my key things that I'm always, sort of affected by, I suppose. But yeah, just really nice little book. They do sell it in the UK, but it's obviously not got that nice cover. It's got a different nice cover. So yeah. So those are all my books for this month. Put the last one up there. So yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully you pick up one of those books that I've read and enjoy it as well. And yeah, watch out for August, when I basically talk about the books I've read for July, and we'll have my recommendations for the month. So that's it from me today, and yeah, I'll leave it on the last note of happy reading. See you guys, bye bye.